Press play because it's time to get ready for Austin Talks! Hello everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Austin Talks! Oh boy, as you guys can clearly tell, I am a little under the weather, and considering the weather outside is cold, little frightful, little wet, I decided to stay inside and tell you guys about how I have always been an inside child. And what better way to do it than give you guys a little story next to the fire. Do you guys remember being kids in middle school and seeing a crowd of children outside your class? Well, so do I. The only difference is that I was one of those kids in the crowd. But I bet you're probably thinking, well, Austin, we're not stupid. We saw the title of the video. I bet you're one of those fucking loser YuGiOh kids. Well, yeah, but, there was a whole joke I was gonna say, and... well, buckle in and let the show begin. Wow! Wasn't that an exciting opening? Well, if you were wondering, yes, I was a YuGiOh kid. Granted, I wasn't a very good one, but after a few years of not playing and getting a girlfriend or two, I felt like it was time to open the old deck box again and get back on that mat. Now, for you other more productive adults, YuGiOh is a card game based after an anime, based after a manga. It's what they call cardception, and this game is the epicenter of so many brilliant, vibrant minds throughout the years of this game's existence. But it has also become a bitch fest for people to complain about how the game is constantly changing and progressing. Basically, if you lose a YuGiOh game against someone who spends a lot of money and time on a deck, and you only spent $10 for, like, a target deck, well, you have found YuGiOh. And it's a sick game, but it's a fun one. But YuGiOh isn't just about complaining about overpowered cards all the time, it's about fun. Deep down under all the ban lists and terrible tournament players, there's a game. And it's a game so many people, including myself, have come to love over the years. And to you all, this story is for you. And anybody else who's willing to listen. Back when I was in high school, I had a good amount of interests, but the main ones actually included yo-yoing and voice acting. And sometimes the trumpet. The trumpet is pretty cool. But whilst I was focusing on these things, a good friend of mine, whose name I shall only refer to as Young Yoshi, was introducing me back into the game of YuGiOh. He, however, was a professional YuGiOh player that had won a bunch of tournaments in his time and was willing to teach me the ways of the ancient pharaoh. Apparently, the ancient pharaoh liked to play cards. Fucking gambler. Now, out of all the duels I've had in my life, I will never forget the first tournament I have ever been to. It was my first 2 weeks back into the game. I had put a deck together that consisted of cards that, didn't really have a lot of synergy with each other, but they were really popular, they looked cool, and they sounded awesome. Like, look at this. Dark Magician. Basically just a cool emo kid who had the balls to dye his hair. Jinzo, who literally looks like that guy with the huge neck from 10 memes. And lastly, Blue Eyes White Dragon, which is altogether just a really cool looking card. But the guy that made the card in the anime is basically just an actual YuGiOh player. Guy who spends a lot of money on a card game when he should really be focusing his money and time on things that make more sense. Now, the duel didn't exactly go in my favor, mainly because of the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, but even more so because the person I was playing against was even better than Young Yoshi himself. He had spent a bunch of years to master this skill, and I was just some kid who thought the cards were cool and shiny. Now, that's kind of like taking a kid who likes to kick a ball down a street sometimes and putting him in a real game against a professional soccer player. Just like that little kid, I knew immediately that the odds were stacked against me. So what did I do? I used the one skill that I had worked a lot harder than YuGiOh at the time, my acting skills. When the duel began, my mind started racing when I drew my first hand, which consisted of 5 cards that I didn't know a fucking thing about. I didn't let my opponent know that, however, because my poker face was flawless. But since I only had a few cards that I could use for that turn, I decided to pull a good old Yu-Gi-Oh move and straight up just normal summon a monster and set one card. And then I passed my turn. Needless to say, that didn't really do anything because as soon as my opponent drew his first card, he started basically vomiting his entire hand and a good portion of his deck onto the field. Once he had gotten his Death Armada together, the gravity of the situation actually hit me. It was such cold and painful feeling, not being able to do a damn thing as your opponent literally face fucks you in front of your friends and colleagues. I did not like it at all! But after he won the duel, I walked away from the table with a level of shame I would do anything in my power not to feel again. And that's how I fell in love with Yu-Gi-Oh! I believe the lesson you can all take from this is, if you fall off the horse, get your shit together, spend a little cash, get a better deck, and get your ass back on that horse. Now, make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with all the boring shit I do in my life, and watch my consistent recovery from my